on Monday to hold its first field hearing in 2 decades. The hearing is entitled Protecting the Freedom to Vote, Recent Changes to Georgia Voting Laws, and the Need for Basic Federal Standards to Make Sure All Americans Can Vote in the Way That Works Best for Them. One of the witnesses who will testify at that hearing is Helen Butler. Joining our discussion now is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. She is the chair of the Senate Rules Committee, which has oversight over federal elections. And Senator, I hope you were listening earlier because I was trying to do some staff work for you with LaTosha Brown, who knows Georgia well and knows that election law well, on what you should be aiming for in Georgia. What do you hope to accomplish in Georgia?
Well, I think she had some great advice, and that is to allow the people like Helen, people like the voter, the veteran who stood in line for 3 hours, the state senator who fought this tooth and nail, let them do the talking. Because what we're going to hear is the reason that Helen Butler was removed from her post, and that is because there is a concerted effort, not only in Georgia, but in Texas, as you just heard from the state senator, to basically take away people's freedom to vote, Lawrence. And one of I think many of us are focused on the provision in the bill that passed in Georgia that said you can't give water to voters in line. Of course, an egregious, egregious measure. But there's so much more in that bill, and that's what LaTosha was getting at. Basically, the state legislature kicked people off the voting board. Then they said, and if we just find a few technical violations, we can replace you, local officials. We'll look for stuff and we will replace you. One of the things people haven't noticed very much is that, they require runoffs. That is where Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff became great senators, as they are. But they reduced the time for that runoff to only 28 days. So there is no time after the general election. They reduced it, and wait, they kept in place their law that you cannot register as a new voter. You have to do it 29 days before. Pretty obvious.
And one of the things about that is we did see this astonishing thing in the runoff Senate campaigns in Georgia, and that was that they were able to get more voters engaged in that Senate election for the second round of the Senate election.
Exactly. And other things they do, the ballot boxes, the drop-off boxes, so important in so many states. I bet a lot of your viewers use those. Well, they said, well, you have to have less of them, and you can only have them at the early voting locations and only during those hours. A bit redundant. So it's just measure after measure after measure. And I'm looking forward to working with our 2 great senators in Georgia, members of the Rules Committee, and the day before I'll be seeing the great Stacey Abrams. And we think it's really important for the senators to go to Georgia and see exactly what's going on and hear directly from the people. And just as the Texas legislators came to Washington, I think it's important that we go out in the field. We have to keep the pressure on. And they said to me when I met with them after I talked to you this week, they said, we're passing you the torch. They came to Washington for salvation, and it's the one place they can find it, and only if we pass the bills.
Mitch McConnell said that you and the Democrats are just using this Georgia law in what he says is a shameless effort to manufacture an air of crisis. What is your response to Mitch McConnell on that?
Crisis. You know what a crisis is? You know what chaos is? Chaos are those voters in Milwaukee standing in line in their garbage bags in the pouring rain with homemade masks. Chaos was that law in North Carolina that the Republicans passed that got thrown out because the judges said it discriminated against African Americans with surgical precision. Chaos is what we see in Texas when there's one ballot drop-off box in Harris County, Texas, with over 5 million people, or the lines we saw in Georgia with voters waiting in the sun, with senior citizens not even being able to vote because they couldn't stand the heat. That is chaos, and that is a crisis. So we are going down there because the Republicans, in a concerted effort, are trying to take away people's freedom to vote, and he knows that. They can say what they want, but we are not going to stop fighting this fight.
Do you have any other field hearings planned or considered for in any other states? Texas, for example?
Yes, we're going to go to several other states, and we're working all that out with the people on the ground. Right now, all the focus is on Georgia, and then we'll go from there. And my main goal for doing this is to just continue to get people state by state to help us to put pressure on the Republicans, on our colleagues, to get this done. This is a concerted effort at people like Reverend Warnock. And he is someone who, in his own words, he decided to devote his maiden speech on the floor to voting rights. And as he summed it up better than I've said in this whole interview, some people don't want some people to vote. That's what this is about.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, chair of the Senate Rules Committee, thank you for joining us once again tonight. We always appreciate it.
Thank you very much.